Okay. I'll call the meeting of the Thompson Board of Education to order at 7 o'clock. And Ms. Gurna, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep my update short because we have a lot of business to get through tonight. We're in the, as you all know, we're in the middle of budget season. We had a very, I thought, a very useful meeting between the Board of Finance and the Board of Education the last week. I thought that we gave them a lot of information for our budget, that they understood a lot of stuff that maybe they hadn't understood in the past. There's some new members on the Board of Finance. And I think that next week we do have another meeting. And I've got some feedback from some of you on the presentation. I know that you won't be here, Jess. So Jess has given me some feedback, and that all in all, we're trying to trim down using Amy as our model. Less is more, I guess. Plus, we gave them a lot of information that about the budget, and it's a really, I think, a nuts and bolts budget. So I think we did a good job with that, and kudos to all of the administrators that helped all the teachers, and a ground up budget. I think you all did a very good job helping Bill and Melinda here do the budget, and you know, keep your fingers crossed, you know, and now it's up to the communications committee, a subcommittee, and the whole Board of Ed and everybody here to get the word out. We need to get the budget passed. So anyway, I really don't have a lot to say because it's, you know, it's right there. It's the budget. There's a whole lot of things going on. Senator Gordon was going to join us tonight, but he had a medical emergency, and Senator Flexer, is she
On her way.
on her way? So Senator Flexer will be here, and she's going to go over, hopefully, and fill us in on what's happening on the state level with education. I mean, there's a lot going on this year. The state is focusing on some educational issues. We've had a grassroots here in Thompson campaign to make them aware, and other towns and cities across the state. And I was a little bit disturbed to see that the governor has pushed forward $54 million in his budget, or increased $54 million split between 147 school districts is kind of diddly squat for special education reimbursement. But hey, we'll take something, but that's not going to cut it. But other than that, and at this point, then I will turn it over to citizens' comments. Keep in mind that I am, because of tonight's big agenda, I will limit them to 3 minutes. So if anyone has a citizen's comment, I'll go to the audience first, and then I will go to the Zoom. Anyone in the audience, state your name and your address. Yes.
Callie Parker.
Could you come to the mic, please? Unfortunately, I can't hear. It's from back there.
And the people on Zoom.
Yeah, and the people on Zoom.
My name is Callie Parker and I reside in Thompson.
I'm Paul Prue, and I reside in Dudley, but we're here about my granddaughter.
Okay,
He She attends the school. She's attended the school her whole life.
That's preschool.
She only, and they're recently moving, and it's only to the end of school, and she'll be graduating this year. And the school said that she cannot stay here. She has to go to Putnam schools. And all she wants to do is just graduate with her friends. I thought she's gone to school with her whole life.
She's an 8th grade student.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's
And
also got accepted to Ellis Tech. So this would mean she'd have to go from this school, start a whole new school again, then in the fall, start another whole school. I just don't think it's fair to her, and I think it's very detrimental to her to go through this. I mean, she's had a hard time. We lost her dad, and I'm grandfather. And all we're asking is that you please let her just stay for the finish out the year and graduate with her friends.
I was told in a meeting in October, December, it was the principal, assistant principal, and the guidance counselor. And I was told, when I told them that we would be moving, and I was told as long as it's after January, that, and I also provide her transportation back and forth, that if it's 8th or 12th grade, she can finish out and have the option. Then a week ago, I was just told differently. And I had to write a letter to the superintendent asking permission, which was denied. Also, her counselor wrote a letter attached to it and stating that she's more than willing to talk to whoever about her anxiety and depression, and it's her best interest to finish out Thompson instead of Putnam, but that wasn't even looked at or considered or talked to. She does have.
I mean, she's been through so much with losing her dad, and like I said, it's only 3 months to finish out the year in this school that she's gone through her whole life since kindergarten. And I don't understand why that should have to change, especially once she was already told they would have held off till June to move.
If I wasn't told
If-
differently,
We weren't, they weren't told differently.
so she could finish 8th grade.
So she could finish 8th grade and graduate with her, the one she's went to school with her whole life. I just hope you can reconsider and just let her stay for the rest of the year, and then she can move on to Ellis Tech in the fall. I just hope you really can have a little heart, and it's my granddaughter, it's my baby, Peanut. I just hope you can really reconsider and give her a chance to stay and finish with her friends. It's only 3 months, maybe 3.5. I mean, they get spring vacation, they got April vacation, so it's really not all that much. I mean, for someone that's been here their whole life. And this is a big move in this house. She's lived in this home for her whole life too, so this is a big change for her. Not only they're moving from the home she's been in all life now, she can't finish with her friends. I just hope you can reconsider and just let her stay for 3 months and graduate with her friends.
Okay, well, we understand that, sir, but we do have a policy here and we have to defer to that policy. And it is the superintendent's.
I do understand that, but like I said,
And we as a board can't make the decision right now because we don't have all the facts and we don't understand why, the superintendent made that
She
decision.
said, because I'm not residing in Thompson anymore, that was the reason.
Pardon me?
I won't be residing in Thompson anymore, that was the reason in the letter that I got back.
and my only case about that, and once again, is she was already told that if it moved after
okay.
January,
Or else it
they
would
would let
stay.
her, finish the year out from 2 people, a counselor and a principal. And if she wasn't told that, she would stay till June. She would have lived there till June. But with the case that, that she's gonna provide transportation and all that, they were able to move early.
Well,
I mean,
I
that
don't
would
know.
have
I
changed
don't under-
everything,
We don't know all the facts.
all the facts.
Yeah,
Well,
we don't have the
you
facts.
know
and
the
we
facts,
can't-
right?
We
I
can't
mean,
make
you're
a
a
decision,
big part of
so.
it. So I mean,
I can put those facts together for you. And then we do have a meeting next week. So if you wanted to weigh in on those facts next week and make a decision.
We could do that.
I'd appreciate it.
I greatly appreciate that. I mean, because it's really not fair to her.
could
It's
do
gonna be
that,
real
sir.
detrimental to her. Like I said, all these changes. It just.
Because
It's
I don't
really,
know who has the authority to say you wait till after January. I'm not familiar with that. You've been on the board longer, Bill. Are you familiar with that? No,
I've never heard of that, but I know.
No.
There's different situations, but we don't, like I said, we don't have all the facts, so
Right.
we certainly.
Kathleen,
Yes, Tom.
I've been on the board for 17 years and I've never heard a January rule either.
Okay.
And then when I asked
That's
about
what we were
that, after I
told.
found out and asked Ms. Palachuk about it, and she said that was her misunderstanding.
Okay.
So with that misunderstanding, now she's not allowed to finish out 8th grade, or else it would have stayed.
Well, I'm sorry, it is at the superintendent's discretion and she will give us her reasoning. And we meet next week for a
I mean,
budget.
the school board, I mean, you're always looking out for what the best interest of the child is.
Mhm.
And what's in her best interest, not because budget or anything else or stuff,
Well,
what's in the
we
child's
also
best
have a
interest.
duty to all the other students.
Yeah,
too,
no, I
so.
understand that too. I do understand that. I
So-
just don't want to see her. If
Neither
this,
do we, sir, but we have a duty to the entire.
yeah,
student
no, I
body.
do understand that. I just feel that if,
Thank you for your,
You
and
don't
we
let
will
her-
take this matter up. Superintendent Smith will give us the background and we will take this matter up next week.
thank you.
Thank you.
We have a
Should we be
meeting
here
on
for
the
that meeting too, or?
and we will inform you of our decision.
All right, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I appreciate
You're
you
welcome.
hearing us.
Thank you. Okay, any other? Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Tom. Any other citizens' comments? Either from. Yes?
Did May get here?
She's here.
Okay.
Uh,
Sean Brissette, Old Davis
Microphone,
Road.
please.
Yes.
Do I need to be at the microphone?
Yeah, you don't
Yes.
speak loud in the
Please do.
microphone.
Okay. So
Name,
I said
address.
Sean Brissette, Old
I
Davis
didn't
Road.
hear you. You weren't at the microphone.
All right. So this year's budget's 21,441,863.
Mhm.
Special ed is 4,820,155 of that.
I think it's
Okay.
higher than that, isn't it?
Okay. 6.2 mil of our mill rate goes to special ed.
Mhm.
Now, before applying for the first payment of the excess cost grant. The budget was over $900,000 in the red.
Yep.
On special ed. I'd like to know from our elected officials. Should go. How is a small town like Thompson supposed to take that kind of hit year in and year out because of the volatility of special education? Okay? The state used to cover all the special education costs. As it is, every resident, every taxpayer in Connecticut is paying for special ed. One way or another, we're already paying for it. There's no reason why the state shouldn't take that back over. If the state administered the funds and it followed the child, it would not be nearly as volatile to local, it wouldn't be volatile at all to local budgets. Kids moving from Putnam to Thompson costing us $100,000 out of the blue, or in this case, this year, $900,000 out of the blue. There was no way to budget for that because we didn't know these kids were gonna be here. The state has skirted this responsibility for, I think, a decade and a half now, since they stopped funding special ed. It might be longer than that. It might be longer than that. They keep putting the mandates on us while not funding it, while celebrating their budget surplus every year. So somehow magically they have too much money, but not enough to actually help fund this. There's no way, I mean, what did he say? We got $225,000 of $340,000 that we're gonna get. Thanks. That's awesome. $340,000 in excess grant from the state.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying the state should shoulder the burden. Start charging me an extra dollar every time I buy a pair of jeans or every time we fill our gas tank. Find the tax somewhere else, but that would be a cost savings immediately. If you have a $250,000 house in Thompson, you'd be saving $1,500 a year in your taxes. So we're still gonna pay the bill, just spread it out so that it's not such a big hit. Because our regular ed kids in this school, and I'm sure there could be somebody standing at a Board of Ed meeting in 169 towns in this state saying the exact same thing. The special ed costs are through the roof, mainly because of mandates, and I'm not saying we shouldn't help those kids, but the way this is funded is ridiculous. And I don't know how this has gone on that long. There is no excuse for it. You've been there, I don't even know, 15 years now? There's no excuse for this at all. I am so tired of reading Winnie and reading, oh boy, another surplus. By the way, we're still not helping you local town. And it has killed our budget every year. Somebody's got to answer for it. Thank you.
You're welcome, John. Okay. Any other citizens' comments?
I just have a comment, Kathleen.
Hmm?
I just have a quick comment.
Okay.
Danielle Carlson, 3 Rachel Drive. We were able to have 2 TMHA students come into the salon to job shadow. And I just wanted to say a shout out to Sarah and Anna. They hung out for 4 hours and they loved every minute of, they did updos, they did grading. They were great to work with, and it was a really awesome experience for us in the salon and for them as well.
Wonderful.
Kathleen, I have a comment as a citizen. I just wanted to make an announcement to everybody that we are running a fundraiser, that it's nearing its end. It's to benefit both 8th grade moving up, TMHS project graduation, as well as the school's incentive program. So it's three different programs that it's going to help fund, and it is $10 for a raffle to potentially win a pair of club seat tickets to the Boston Celtics. And the last time we can sell them is probably February 19th, because it's going to be pulled on Facebook Live on the school's website on February 21st on the Friday there. The information is on the school Facebook page. I think it might even be on the website. It's been disseminated multiple times. So, but Jess and I both are selling them. She's doing 8th grade and I'm doing the high school, as well as if you go to any high school basketball home game this week. I know the boys are playing Wednesday and Friday. The concession stand has them. And they're $10 and it's for 3 great causes. So if you are interested, reach out to either one of us.
Kathleen?
Oh.
Kathleen?
Yep.
Jessica Bolte, 1081 Riverside Drive, to plug another 8th grade fundraiser. We're doing a raffle calendar, $10 a piece. Oh, and Girl Scout cookies.
Oh, God.
Okay, I'm good.
All right. The guys are robbing me blind.
Don't hate the fundraiser, hate the game.
Okay. All right, okay, now we have the Turtle Memorial High School liaison report. What did I do? What's that?
Okay, first I wanted to start off by saying that last month was Board of Education Appreciation Month. And so the Student Spirit Association at Turtle wanted to show all of our appreciation for the Board of Education and everything that you do for our school. So Brianna is going to be handing you out gifts while we do our report. We do have a student spotlight, but the report's not done yet, so it will be presented next month.
Okay.
And for the TMHS events, February 1st was senior indoor track meet. February 3rd was girls basketball senior night. February 4th was the student council meeting at 7 p.m. February 8th was the ECC indoor track championships. February 14th is the TSLT in-service and local government mock elections and the boys basketball senior night. February 19th is governance council meeting at 6 p.m. February 26th is the blood drive kickoff assembly. And February 27th is the CNA graduation ceremony at 6 p.m.
Other news, CMEA highlights. The Connecticut Music Educators Association held its annual competition on January 10th to 11th. Outstanding performances were given by sophomore Noah Russell in band, junior Chloe Hebert in treble choir, and junior Kevin Becerra in mixed choir. On January 13th, the second round of TMHS senior showcases was held. 3 seniors, Chris Aubin, Mateus Romano, and Nicholas Ruggieri, successfully presented to a panel of 3 TMHS teachers and Thompson Board of Education members, Danielle Armstrong Carlson and Heather Santos. The electric boat job fair was held on January 17th. 35 TMHS students and 15 Putnam High School students attended. Electric Boat set up a 50-foot inflatable submarine where students could see exhibits featuring several shipyard careers. Students were also challenged to test their welding skills using virtual welders. Students also visited EastCon's STEM manufacturing trailer. Other companies meeting with the students included Spiral, Collins and Jewell, Wasco Industrial, Airgas, and Ready CT worked with students to set up accounts with Electric Boat's personnel office. 6 TMH senior welding students applied to the company's welding department. On January 24th, TSLT members continued preparations for local government mock elections to be held on February 14th. Student leaders are researching local government positions and reaching out to local leaders to help them prepare stump speeches and campaign materials. Students will debate at the TSLT in-service on February 14th, and an election will be held. Some student leaders will be attending evening commission/board meetings in the coming weeks, while others will be shadowing local leaders at the town facilities on March 21st. This third annual local government roundtable event will accumulate in the Rye Scavenge Auditorium on March 21st at 11:30 with a luncheon catered by the TMHS Culinary Department. At the luncheon, student leaders will share what they have learned, along with the stump speeches and campaign materials. The TSLT would like to thank Mrs. Santos and the Board of Ed Communications Committee for all their coordinating.
On January 31st, TMHS held this Q2 honor roll assembly where a significant number of students were recognized for their academic achievement. Teachers also gave individual awards recognizing students for various accomplishments. Mystery Dinner Theater, the event was well attended and once again a huge success. The TMHS Drama Club, advised by Mr. T. Smith, wowed the audience with stellar performances, and the Culinary Arts Department once again provided a delicious meal. And for Student Voice, members of the Student Council would like to thank Mr. Mellon for his flexibility with adjusting the securely settings to allow for little to no wait time for students who need to use the restroom. Thank you.
While you're up here, Josh, I wanted to congratulate you because, you are my nephew, but Josh has broken some records recently on the basketball team, so I'd appreciate all, just show appreciation to that. He's got you're the highest scoring game. You hit your 1,000 points, and he's on the trajectory to have the second highest point. Yeah,
he already did it.
You already did.
He already did it.
So
he's
second
second
highest
highest,
point
yep.
average in turtle history. So, we want to say.
Congratulations. Okay, so now we have some awards, recognitions to hand out. The Connecticut Association for Public School Superintendents want to recognize the following students. First one we have is for an Ian McIntyre. This is a certificate of achievement.
Yeah.
What you have to do to get this award?
So, students have to meet a specific criteria established by my professional organization. They are selected by the teachers in their school, and then their names are given to me. And they receive a certificate here, but more importantly, they go to a regional ceremony where they will be honored that night as the superintendent's nominees. There is 2 students from each school.
Oh, terrific. Congratulations. Ian, congratulations.
Yeah, if you could stay like right behind the microphone over there, because we're gonna want a group
Take
shot.
a group picture.
Just right here.
Next one
Well,
goes
a little further beyond that.
Next one goes to Serena Smith. I knew I got dressed up tonight for something. Next one goes to Levi Tucker. Careful. Yeah, go to your left, guys. There you go, congratulations.
You're right, yeah.
Well, my right,
Yeah.
my left, your right. Next one is to Nathan Lyon, okay.
Congratulations.
Oh, congratulations. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna butcher this, so. All right, the next one goes to Annabelle C. Here you go, sweetie. Krasnowski, okay, thank you, congratulations. And last but not least, we have Pranshu Patel. Here, okay.
That's not. But I would like to take a picture and I'm gonna see you all next month in Killingly, right? Okay. It's a big night. And it's a wonderful event and you should be very proud. And parents should be very proud because the criteria was tough. It wasn't only academics, but that they're kind to their peers, that they're leaders in their building. It is a big deal. So congratulations. Thank you. Thank you all.
Congratulations, guys. I'm sure it's all well deserved.
Are you gonna let them?
Yeah.
Go.
Okay, next on our. Okay, yes, so they are. Okay, everybody, you're welcome to go home and do your homework.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Next, I'd like to recognize the esteemed senator from the 29th District of Connecticut, Ms. May Flexer. Would you please come up and fill us in on what's happening in Hartford, especially on the educational issues?
And we also sent her a letter, remember, highlighting the 3 issues that we have here in town, the alliance funding, special education, meal programs.
Right.
Sorry, I'm just surprised I'm the only one here. I thought my colleagues were coming.
No,
Well,
he had a medical emergency.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's coming next month.
Okay. And the representative?
No, he's
We
not
haven't-
here
We
either.
haven't heard from.
Oh,
him.
okay.
Yeah.
I just thought they were here on the ground. All right.
Following in his father-in-law's.
That's not appropriate.
I know.
There's a lot on our plates. It's a busy day. It was a busy day today because of the snow. A lot of things that got canceled last week got moved to today, so I'm sure folks have a lot of things going on. Well, I'm glad to have the invitation again to be here this evening and grateful for all the work that you all do to support the schools here in Thompson and make them the great centers of excellence that they are, from preschool to high school, and the innovation that's happening here in a small community is really impressive, and nice to be here at the beginning of the meeting and see the recognition that I'm sure you're celebrating students like that every time you have a Board of Education meeting. So nice to have a glimpse of that. This is the beginning of a 2-year budget cycle here in Connecticut, and the governor just last week introduced his proposal for the budget. I serve on 6 committees in the legislature, and 2 of them are the Appropriations Committee and the Education Committee. The Education Committee is having an offshoot this year. There's a special committee that's been created to look specifically at the issue of special education and to dive deep into that issue, recognizing the incredible burden it is on local property taxpayers to support funding special education. I think we've got to find a balance. And I know that committee is going to continue the work that's been done over the last 2 years of the special committee that convened educators and superintendents and parents and legislators from all across the state and put together a report. I think we should build into the educational cost sharing grant and recognition and the numbers of special education students and the dollars that are spent in a district. I think in a town like Thompson, and frankly, in towns all across our district, in the 29th district, it would make a huge difference if that was recognized and built into the cost. Many of our towns have seen stagnation in ECS over the last several years, and that would really take into account the increases you've all seen in the cost of running schools here in this community. I'm sure we'll have unanimous agreement in making sure that Thompson continues to receive its alliance funding. I'm hopeful that maybe this year we'll have a conversation about just restructuring that whole program and fully moving you into it instead of having this strange situation where we have to fight to give you the money, even though you qualify for it. But, you know, I stand here ready to make sure that that happens, and I'm sure we'll do that in a bipartisan fashion with Senator Gordon and Representative Stewart, as we've done in the past. And lastly, I've been proud to be a partner with you all in some of the facilities and making sure that there was investment here. Folks in Thompson do an incredible job of using limited resources and having them go a very long way. And so with projects like the track and the playground, was really proud to be able to step in as your senator to advocate for the state to be a partner in those efforts and to see those projects come to fruition last year. Ready to find out what those next projects are that you need partnership with, and be as strong a voice as I can to ensure success in those areas as well.
I know as superintendent, the work you've done on the backside for Alliance, I know Bill does as well. You know, we've come out to the state with you, and you've been a real good voice for us. I do hope that they put us in that bucket with everyone else. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I believe it, and we discussed this at our last budget meeting, that the ECS, the economic cost share, has not increased in multiple years. I don't even know, over
Since
7 years or so.
Before 2017, however, we were held harmless during that time when reductions were, you know, predicted, and we were held harmless primarily because we were an Alliance district, and you know, we were lucky to hang on to that funding, but it has been the same amount for all of those years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's with the way costs in so many areas are growing, that's not really being held harmless. That's a cut. So,
Correct.
you know, we've got to find, I think we need to find a way to restructure our budget so that we can actually deliver the resources that are necessary to do a lot of different things in our state, including running our public schools.
Yeah. Our children are our future. Yes, I mean, yes, industry runs the, you know, and everything else is important too, but the children are the future, and the people are leaving our states, leaving our public schools, and unfortunately, with the executive orders coming down from Washington, it's precarious whether the federal funding is going to be there. We're going to rely possibly, maybe, more and more on the state for funding.
Yeah, it's a terrifying
scary.
time. It is scary. It is scary. I mean, I think for a long time, people didn't realize how much money flows in and into a community that comes from the federal government. Obviously, people know a little bit more about the state government, and if that money were to disappear, communities across Connecticut are in a whole lot of trouble. There's no community, save for maybe a few very, very, very far away from here, yet still in Connecticut, that might be able to fund their public education system without state and federal supports. And so I think we've got to be nimble, and we need to be doing things a little bit differently in Connecticut, because we don't know how things are going to change at the federal level. And maybe some of the proposed cuts that were talked about a couple weeks ago aren't going to happen right now, but they very well may happen in October. And we need to be ready. And I'm frankly terrified. I don't know what we do if Title I money dries up for towns all across northeastern Connecticut. That would have a devastating impact to education as we know it. I sincerely don't know how some of our districts, and perhaps this is one of them, would keep its doors open. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong about that, but so that's a reason why I think at the state level, so the state level is much more like the town level than a lot of people appreciate, in that just like you, we have to have a balanced budget, right? And we have a spending cap and limits on that. And I think this year we've got to think big and think about how those things might need to be restructured so state government can be more nimble than it has been in the past, in case that crisis comes down from the federal level, so that we can try to hold things harmless, at least in the short term. Now, just to be clear though, the state could never fill the gap in the long term for that kind of money. If that was a long-term cut that went through, again, I just don't know what public education would continue to look like.
That's good. One of the other things though, is, as was mentioned, if the state fully funded special education, that would be a game changer for our school.
Sure.
That would be a game changer for our taxpayers. Being that we are a small town with hardly any industry, all the burden is on the property owners. And as you know, the economic status of some of the people who live in our town is mixed.
Yep.
And so, and that is something the state could do, and that could do readily, is fully fund special education and lift that burden off us. And then if things like Title I dry up, it's not close the doors conversations, it's reevaluate stuff. But with special education not being fully funded and something like that happened, that is a potential, So, I mean, I know it's been talked about, and I think it's been talked about in many years, but I think it's most talked about recently is to maybe fully fund it again. But I think now is the time to really do that,
Yeah,
So-
I appreciate that. And I'll just say a couple of things in response. First of all, a lot of the special education mandates are actually federal mandates that the federal government has never paid for. And frankly, I have no hope that that's going to suddenly start happening, given what we were just talking about. And so what has happened is, in the past, the state has attempted to step up and cover the cost of both the federal mandates and the state mandates. And that's where we've really been falling short, in that we haven't had the capacity to cover both the federal and the state mandates. Now, it's not as simple, and I think it could be simple, but it's not as simple as just finding the resources, because of the structures I mentioned earlier that restrict our state budget. There are things that have been put in place that folks might be familiar with, that they're often called the fiscal guardrails, that limit our spending, that limit how much revenue can be spent, where that revenue goes. And it's restricted both because of those guardrails and some ways the state invests its money as well. And so, trying to figure out how to restructure those, but make sure that the state's budget and its finances are set up well for the long term, I think is a conversation that we're having this year in a more meaningful way than we have had in the last 8 years. But I do want to be clear that I don't think, if let's say we wanted to today to fully fund the cost of special education, we would go outside the state spending cap in all likelihood. And so that's why we have to, and I'm sorry to have my back to you slightly. That's why we have to try to find some new ways to do these things. The governor last week proposed a new initiative around early childhood education, and having funding in a different pot is sort of a way to get around that spending cap. I applaud the initiative around more investments in early childhood, but the kind of thinking he was using for that is a reflection of how stringent the existing spending cap is. So I guess that's my way of just saying to you that advocate for us to change those restrictions, to change the spending cap, to change the volatility cap, especially if you want us to be able to be nimble in the nightmare scenario that you just described, where Title I and federal Department of Education money is going away, and the special education costs still need to be covered.
I don't think anybody said that money is going away. The department may be going away, but since 1979, it really hasn't done anything except Title I and IDEA. And it's been broken for a long time. And nobody has said that money is going away. So I wouldn't worry about that. And you're right, it was the federal government that was supposed to fund all of this and that broke their word and has not done it. But if the federal government's not gonna do it, then the state of Connecticut has to step up and do more. They have to do more. They tax us to death in this state. It's very expensive to live here. And they, like Sean had mentioned, there's always a budget surplus. But maybe that's because we're taxed too much. I don't believe it's because they're doing such a great job in Hartford. But the state has to step up and take some of this responsibility and take it off of the taxpayers. It's unfair and unreasonable to think that we have to fund this completely.
So I'd say a couple things in response to that. First of all, when the state has surpluses, those surpluses are going towards paying down our long-term pension obligations and other long-term costs that in the state of Connecticut were not paid for over 80 years. And in the last decade, we've been finally making those full payments on those long-term costs. And so when those surpluses come in, you can argue whether or not the spending cap should be different, the revenue cap should be different, whether those surplus dollars should be spent in a different way, but they have been used to lower the cost overall of paying off that long-term debt to the tune of over $10 billion over the last 8 years. That has freed up space for us to make investments in things like alliance districts and other programs underneath the state spending cap. So if we didn't have that reduction in our state's debt, there would be less money that could be spent. And so we can have a debate on, where the appropriate place for revenue to come in. I think the state of Connecticut should collect revenue in the manners that it has that are more equitable and more fair, so that less of that revenue has to come out of the pockets of property taxpayers, which is the most regressive tax that we have here in Connecticut. So I think we should look at the state's fiscal guardrails and adjust those so that revenue can come into the state. Those revenues can be used to support towns and school districts so that property taxes can be held lower, so that property taxpayers aren't bearing as much of the burden as they are for local education and the overall operation of our local towns. I think raising the money that the state does is a more equitable way to do it than seeing property taxpayers have their bills go up each and every year and have them individually. Like I know you have the debate in this town, and most towns in northeastern Connecticut have the debate where people, they want to support their schools, but they can't afford a $500, an $800, a $1,200 increase on their property taxes in a given year. That's why I think it's more equitable for that revenue to come in the income tax and other taxes that the state uniquely collects, and that money comes back to the towns to help keep that property tax rate down.
It's going up primarily because of the special ed. I don't think anybody in the town has a problem paying for the school and what the town needs. What I have an issue with is that special ed that the federal government promised that they were going to do, and they just haven't done it. And it's been less and less and less over the years. And the state is kicking in less and less and less over the years. And I'm not going to argue the point that about relief for the homeowners, and because I don't know, and I don't want any to pay any more either. But it's nice to talk about it, but nothing's being done. And even that extra money for the Alliance District, Thompson's still not even part of that. You've fought hard for it and make sure we have it, but something's broken where we're called an Alliance District. And yet we have to beg you to go to Hartford and get the money for us.
You don't have to beg me, but.
But that's not right. There's something broken with this whole thing.
I don't disagree. I think that Alliance District should, that Alliance program should be restructured so that towns like Thompson and the few others can just automatically be in it, and it's not something that we have to specifically ask for.
And Senator Flexer, what's on top of that, we're not only an Alliance District, we're an Opportunity District. So we're one of 10 low performing school districts. I am sure if they ran the numbers today, we wouldn't be in that category, but with that extra designation, there was never any funding, there was just more oversight.
Right.
Kathleen?
Yes.
So what I'm kind of gathering is that the government has created mandates that they can't afford to run. So my thought would be redo the mandates, like look at the actual mandates themselves and see, where this has umbrellaed out to that, because the government isn't taking that, they don't want no part of it. So now it's trickled down to the state, and the state's like, we can't afford it. So now it's this, the town's problem, and it's these unfunded mandates. Well, maybe it's just in the mandate itself, peeling back and looking at where, truly the town should cover this part, we should be covering that part, or revise them to that so that they're fiscally available for us to all pay for, because that's what it just seems like. It's like somebody was up top saying we need to do this, but didn't watch the trickle effect of how it's going to be funded. And I think a lot of it is just reevaluating the mandate itself. And then the numerous mandates, because we're always getting new mandates. You have to do this, you have to do that, but there's no money to follow it, but we figure it out. But the state didn't want to take care of, or the federal government doesn't want to take care of it. The state doesn't want to take care of it. What's going to happen when the town says, we're not paying that bill? We're not going to do it.
Back of the general ed population.
Exactly. So like, that's where it's getting. It's like our federal government can't afford it, our state can't afford it, and our towns can't afford it. So it's like, we're up there in the mandate world. Are we going to look at these mandates and decide, this isn't fiscally responsible? Like, what is the answer to help get these students the help they need, but also make it fiscally responsible and where we can do it? So, like that's kind of where I'm at. You gotta look at these mandates, because these mandates, we can't afford them. Nobody can afford them. The government can't afford them. But that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I think there's some mandates that can be looked at. I would just say, if I'm being forthright,
Yeah.
that when it comes to special education, I wouldn't want to roll back the opportunities that young children in this community or any community in our state have. And a lot of those state and federal mandates are guaranteeing a certain level of education to help students that have unique challenges. And I do feel strongly that the state should be supplying more of the resources to help cover those costs. But I don't want to be dishonest and stand in front of you and just agree about changing mandates, when I work with a lot of different families that have to fight a battle to get their kids the proper education.
Right.
And I know you all are on the front lines of
Right.
understanding all of that as well. And I would not be in favor of rolling back some of our mandates when it comes to special education, because I want to make sure every young child in every community in Connecticut has the same opportunity to obtain an education and set themselves up for a successful life in the long run.
Which I completely agree. But when these mandates come rolling down, the funding needs to come with it. So if you're going to tell us that we need to do this, you're going to need to help us fund it.
No,
So that's where I'm kind of like, if you can't afford the mandate telling us how we have to do it, then you need to revise the mandate. Or as some said, funding follows the child, what the child's needs are, that funding follows them. But, like, I just have this blanketed mandate that we have to follow, which I get. I mean, every child deserves the proper education, and that's what we're here fighting for. But if you can't, if our federal government can't afford it or doesn't want to
They
pay
don't
for
want to.
our state government saying we might not be able to afford it, but you got to do this. And then we're telling you, we just can't afford it anymore. We're getting, it's increasing hundreds of thousands of dollars yearly. And, somebody has to look at the bigger picture as to if it's the mandates or need to be revised, or the mandates come with, the funding, but something has to happen, because towns are gonna go bankrupt if we're handing off our Board of Education overages to towns. Our town will go bankrupt for sure. So it's like, if year after year after year. So it's like, if we're doing this, and we're gonna end up getting to that point because it just keeps increasing, and it's falling because of the mandates. The mandates say we have to fund this, but we don't have the money to fund it. So, that's where I'm kind of like, my frustration falls under these unfunded mandates. Which I get it. Every child deserves their, a proper education. I get that. But it's a very big mandate, like the special ed goes out so far to so many different levels of different things, and, and we just, it's a lot.
I know, I'll just say that there's
Yeah.
a lot of variety and opportunity in this
Yeah.
state. And last year I spent some time studying the differences between extracurricular activities and
Yeah.
things like field trips in
Right.
towns across the state. And it is like night and day.
Mhm.
The opportunities that you have if you live in a wealthy community in this state and this is not a criticism of any of you, I don't mean it like this at all, but the opportunity that you have if you live in northeastern Connecticut.
Yeah.
I mean, it's shocking.
Yeah.
The
Oh, right
opportunities
corner.
that in these wealthy towns
Mhm.
they have in public schools. And I just mentioned that, I hear you, and I really hope I'm coming back to you in a year or two, telling you we made progress and that the state is contributing a lot more to cover the cost of special education. But the reason I'm so against rolling any of the mandates back
Yeah.
is that what I just said to you, I would hate to see there be that huge of a difference
Right.
between kids who have special needs in Greenwich and kids who have special needs in Thompson, and I
Yeah.
know you agree with that.
Right. I wouldn't say rolling back, I would say revising the way it's brought down.
Yep.
And that it's brought down with funding, like, we're, gonna give you, because we have a high percentage of special ed, so if we were to just run off a district's percentage of special ed, we'd be, we're in the top 16, 18,
We're the 16th in the
16th
state.
in the
Yeah.
state, right then and there, I mean, that just
Right.
tells you how big of a hit to the budget it
Yeah.
could be. And at top 16 out of 169 towns or, school systems.
More, yeah.
Yeah,
more
we're in the
districts
top
than that,
10%, and like, but we have to fund this mandate because we're told to, which I get 100%, but it's like the taxpayers of Thompson can't afford it.
Thank you for taking the time to come out.
Yes, thank you.
And I, Danielle and Sean Brissett kind of covered a lot of what I wanted to say, but since you're here today, if there was a way to make it, and I'm not a legislator, but if there was a way to make it so that every student maybe gets a state ID, I don't know if everybody has a state ID, and then if you're assigned into some kind of special ed, that your funding then follows your state ID number. That way, when you move from one town, because what happens is, and I do also appreciate the fact that you seem to have your pulse on what's going on educationally, so that's great, and I don't think everybody does. And, but man, if a kid moves in from Killingly or Putnam or whatever, or
Webster.
wherever, and it comes in, whacks us for $100,000 because of special ed, it's crippling. So if there was a way to track, or even if they came in from out of state, boom, you get a number. And that way that funding follows the student, and it's just not necessarily 100%, but a significant, the way the excess funding is calculated is nonsense. And it's not enough percentage,
No.
and it's got to be redone, and I appreciate the fact that you were working on it, but work faster on it. It is crippling us.
It is, and I think you're onto something. I think the idea that the money follows the student, no matter what town they live in, I think that could go a long way to mitigating some of the crises that you have in a town like this when things go up so drastically
Somebody
because to your
shows up
point, a
and
couple
boom,
of kids move in. I would say that, just as a warning, that won't work perfect in a town like Thompson or in Putnam or in Killingly, or frankly, most of northeastern Connecticut, because we're a border town. So we can't necessarily plan for that. But I think your proposal where the money goes with the student and is paid more fully by the state would go a long way. The other thing is, last week, I think we sent information to you all that special ed committee that I referenced, they had a meeting. They're doing regional meetings. They had a meeting in Norwich last week. I'm not sure if their public hearing style meetings are finished. And I think they also have a Zoom option as well. So it's a good place to, and I'll make sure, did we send you the whole schedule?
I knew the one that was in Norwich.
Let me see if I'll follow up so we can send you the whole schedule, and
Okay.
then you all can pop in and make these points and talk about the particular experience here in Thompson to that committee as well.
But just case in point, this month, we're reporting out that we have 24 outplaced students. I know when this report comes next month, it'll be 29. And 3 are out of state, some are internal, but it's gonna jump to 29, and in the time I've been here, that was the highest number ever. And we were rolling that back by putting Bradley program on site. I know there's been some conversation with other members of the legislature about, giving school districts incentives for bringing programs in. We have saved a considerable amount of money by having the Bradley Wyndham County program here at every level. I'm hoping that if there are incentives given, that because we've already had that established for many years, we're still in that bucket of, well, if you have these kind of programs, that'll be considered, because we were ahead of the curve when we were trying to mitigate some of these outplacement costs. And over $4 million we've already saved for the town of Thompson. But still, there's more work to be done, and we are actively trying to create our own programs, our own transition programs, and trying to roll back out of district placements. But when you get 3 students that move in from another state, right, and your hands are tied. But the idea that we're going to add 5 more out of district in a month's time is staggering.
Yeah.
When we're already over and Sean's right, we're over $900,000 in deficit in special ed. So it is a real problem, and I know you've heard it a lot around the state. I'm glad that it's coming to a head almost, because something needs to be done.
Yes.
Are you gonna lose your thought?
Yes.
He's out there, he's not gonna let him
Jess
first.
has seated me 30 seconds. While you're talking about this and talking about the inequities in the state on the Gold Coast and all, I asked that when you come up with a formula, you make it fair. Make it fair throughout the whole towns. We see what the state is paid. Honestly, I haven't looked in about 3 years, but there's some towns that get paid 110% of their special ed budget, where we're getting 70%. That's not fair. It should be kind of the same for everybody. So when you're doing that, I just ask that it's fair, and the rich states with all the influence, the rich towns with the influence and the lawyers and the PACs in Hartford, that they don't get more than they deserve.
I agree.
Thank
you. I agree, but that's getting increasingly difficult to fight against, but I won't go down the political rabbit hole with you. But I agree.
One thing that I was wondering if that could be looked into, and I know Massachusetts is doing it or is looking into it, is setting specific cost fees with special education programs. I can guarantee you several of the ones that we use, our kids are not getting the services that they're supposed to be provided for, because I know several people who work in those programs, and they are not being provided the one-on-one paras and everything else, but we are still outlaying a large amount of money for them to receive those services, even though they are not. And I think there needs to be better state oversight on those programs, making sure that they are properly staffed. If not, setting a specific rate for specific programming.
And Senator Flexer, on the heels of what Jessica just said, East Con just hit us with a rate increase of 15% for out of district placed students that go to East Con, and then another 5% on their transportation.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Are you talking about special ed or are you talking about
Special
overall?
ed.
Okay, go ahead.
Special ed. And so for us, luckily, we only have 2 students placed there, but that's $31,000. That's not in the budget, and we're already running deficit. And that was just sprung on us. So some controls around raising rates, within the year needs to be looked at.
Can I ask one more? So I know you've received some correspondence from some of our members advocating for Thompson, advocating for funding special education. We've also reached out to was Representative Hayes and Senator Gordon. And beyond that, so obviously you're well versed in our needs and what's going on here. Beyond that, is there anything else we can do to advocate for ourselves on a state level?
I mean, in terms of solving the problems that we were talking about here tonight, I think the biggest thing we can do is have a real serious discussion around the state's budgeting structures and how we should change those. And we have to find some balance, because I feel really strongly that we have to keep some of those in place because we need to keep paying down that debt, right? That debt wasn't paid for 80 years. Just because we've paid for it for 10 doesn't mean we should celebrate and act like we're finished. So there's a balance here of how do we to keep those monies going to pay down that debt, to shrink that long-term cost that you're like, as we've done by $10 billion in the last 8 years. How can we keep that momentum moving forward, but restructuring the spending cap and the revenue cap and the volatility cap in a way that also allows us to spend more money on the things we were talking about here tonight. I think it's very clear we're gonna have that conversation this year. I would just be curious, all your opinions, and as the process goes on, if you want to share, how you think those things should change and how much more money we should be investing in things like special education for the towns in particular.
All the money.
That'd be very helpful. You wanted to just cover all of it. Then we'd have to completely restructure the spending cap. I mean, to be honest with you, in order to do that and to just maintain everything else, if we wanted to fully fund special education and not change anything else in state spending, we would have to completely change the state spending cap. And that's complicated. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, you can send about $5.5 million to Thompson. Yes, Gersh.
I know it was mentioned that there's 3 things in the letters that we sent. Is there anything, you talked about special education, about the free lunches going into?
Yeah, so I introduced legislation to have the free lunch be a permanent thing with a number of my colleagues. I will say that last week in the governor's budget proposal, he included free breakfast, which in the moment I was so excited. And then I realized when I sat down, I said, oh, wait a minute, he only said breakfast. He did not say breakfast and lunch. But I think that's an opportunity. That was an olive branch because he knows that many of us in the legislature have been pushing for the free meals overall for every student in the state. So I'm hopeful we might be able to get that done this year. There's a lot of support for it in the legislature, just like there's a lot of support for doing something meaningful around special education. So those are 2 things I am really hopeful we're going to make real progress on.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, thanks for having
Yes,
me.
I mean, I want to say
Thank you
thank you
very
because I
much
feel like
for
you're getting the
coming.
onslaught of stuff and
We're
you have
grabbing
the
a
other
hold of it.
senator and representative here, but thank you for taking the onslaught.
We
of stuff.
appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Thank you.
If you have updates as the year goes on, if you want to stop by, you're welcome to.
I appreciate
Without being
that. Thank
ambushed,
you.
without us ambushing. If you give us feedback, that'd be great.
Well, thank you. And I'll continue to send information.
Yep.
There will be a hearing. Did I bring my phone? Yeah, there's a hearing on education funding in general in the Appropriations Committee. And again, all of our public hearings in the legislature, one of the reforms from COVID that is stuck, it is there's Zoom participation in all public hearings. And so a public hearing on special education funding and the governor's budget proposal on education funding overall is on February 20th. It starts at 3 p.m., I believe. And you just have to sign up online the day before. So if folks wanted to be a part of that, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I can send the instructions to the superintendent and have
Thank you.
you share that around with all the board members. So I'm going to send you the other dates for the special committee on special education, or the select committee, excuse me. And I'll send you the information on the appropriations public hearing on February 20th. I serve on that, the subcommittee of the appropriations committee for education. So it would be great to have a few voices from Thompson speaking to what your experience has been as we're trying to advocate for this, whether it's the lunches or special ed or whatever else you want to talk about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's good to hear that they are focusing on education and
Well, special education is just more than the educating part. We're offering mental health services. We're offering, it's a bigger you know, when they created the structure for special ed, there wasn't as much going on as there is now. So it's like, that's when also I mentioned mandates, like we gotta cover, but also make sure we're able to cover, you know.
Okay, next up, we'll do the administrator reports. Okay, he's not here. Okay, so we're going to. Nobody's here tonight. Okay, it'll be quick.
They either are sick or they have sick kids.
Okay.
going on.
here.
All right, so, Mr. Mellon's not here, so then we'll start with, Ms. Renato. School.
Good evening, everyone. So big shout out to Mr. Bernier's STEM class. We had UConn students along with a facilitator come to start our Sea Perch project, and the kids were very receptive and they did an excellent job. The facilitator gave us huge shout outs to our students. They were so well behaved. Also, a big shout out for our PBIS basketball players and our cheerleaders who did their dance during halftime, and we cheered our basketball players on. They had a great season, very proud of them. This month, past month in January was Counselors Month. And interestingly, we're on this grant together with the MTSP grant. And we did an inventory of what we have in place and feeling really good at the middle school. And that's a huge shout out to Julie Maliff and Juliet Nukowski, who honestly, I don't know what we would do without them. They put all their heart and soul into our kids, into our programs, put together our SEL program that we do every morning when the kids get to school. There's a lot of work that is involved in that, and we're always tweaking it. So a big shout out to them. We're very blessed to have them. We have our cereal box challenge that we're doing for the district, and also Penny Wars. So as always, we have a lot going on, and thank you to Senator Flexer. That was amazing, taking the time out and listening to what was needed. Oh, thank you. And that's it for the middle school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Mr. Prentice.
Good evening, how we doing? All right, just a couple congratulations first. Again, congrats to Annabelle Krasnowski and Pranshu Patel, really tip of the fedora to them and to their parents, really outstanding job, and to all the kids that really won the CAPS awards. It's really a testament to what happens in school in combination with what happens in the home. And we just appreciate all the work that those parents do with those kids. Additionally, let's see, a couple more. Welcome, I failed to mention last month, welcome to Laura Fife, who is the new kindergarten teacher. Congratulations on her appointment. Some of you may know her by her maiden name, Laura Fosher. She was a long time, obviously went through the Thompson Public School System, so she's just been a great addition. Also, congrats to Mr. and Mrs. Jezerski, Amanda Jezerski, kindergarten teacher. She is expecting a child, so congratulations to Amanda. She's, let's say she's very excited. She should be excited. Yeah. The high school students mentioned electric boat visiting the high school last month, I think. It was nice for the elementary school kids to be able to be a part of that as well. So I think we had most of the fourth grade went up to the high school to visit. Academically, let's not forget what's happening academically here. Oh, one more shout out. Thank you to Heather Burns she's really done a nice job on School Messenger, which is the parent platform that allows us to send out our newsletters. but to sort of balance out equity and show some equity within the school system. She taught the principals how to send those messages out and translate those into 8 different languages. So we currently have eight different, I think 8 different languages. So thank you to Heather for all the work that she put into that. That's it's a lot of work. Sandra Dona, she's the expert that has worked with those teachers in the district that are Orton Gillingham trained, and so she was here last week working with those teachers, looking at student data, trying to kind of like figure out what's working, what's not working, how can we group kids differently. So really good conversations with those teachers that are OG trained and Sandra Donna. I know I'm probably forgetting a lot of different stuff here. There's a ton of stuff. I don't want to. Math lab was supposed to have. It's going to start next week, but we've done this for the last several years, just making sure that we have a set list of kids that meet a certain criteria to be part of math lab, and we're happy to be able to offer that to those elementary students. And then shout out to Amanda Bonin, Juliana George, working with students for Annie, all that work. There's some people measuring kids for costumes last week. We certainly appreciate that. But and National Guidance Counselors week was School Counselors Week was the first full week of February. So shout out to Miss Becker. She's been visiting classrooms and doing lessons on gratitude and today, sorry, I'm babbling now. 100th day celebration was celebrated on Friday. There were a couple teachers that couldn't get to that, so they did the 101st celebration today, and all the elementary kids dressed up as Dalmatians, and we even had a Cruella de Vil segment. Anyway, have a great night.
Thank you, Larry. That's cute. Okay, we're gonna do, since you're in the package in this order, we will do Heather Burns.
Good evening. Still holding strong. The technicians are still over 200 tickets each month. Danette is continuing her work on all of her state reports, as well as gathering information as needed from Melinda and all the admins. She's doing a great job with that. As always, I am doing a 6-week training course offered by Southern Connecticut State University, and also Skills 21, which is a professional development program. It's on artificial intelligence in K-12 education. So the training is focusing on exploring AI, planning for change, ethical and safe uses, and tools for successful implementation. So it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm hoping to do some PD at some point to introduce it to our teachers. It can be used very, as a time saver,
Especially with curriculum writing.
Curriculum writing, I mean, everything. It'll be very beneficial. So just kind of guiding them on good prompts and things like that. Upcoming events, I am very sorry to say that Bryce has taken another job and will be leaving us. Bryce has been working with me since he was 14. So I owe a lot to him and give him a lot of credit, and we'll really miss him. He's gotten us through a lot and he's really learned a lot. That's why he's moving on to bigger and better things, and I do wish him the best. But happy to say that Travis Canoyer will be taking over. He was with us in the past. He's currently working with a contractor that services other school districts in the area. So he's still fresh in the industry and will bring a lot of new things to us, I'm hoping. So good and bad news. And then just upcoming is setting up the New Year in Power School. There's a lot of work behind that. And then all of the upcoming testing, SBAC, SATs, just making sure all the devices are ready to go and all the apps are up to date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And best of luck. Bryce.
Yeah.
Like Bryce.
Okay, next up is Bill Birch.
So we're kind of single focus right about now. We're gonna see the HVAC project is really starting to roll at this point. We're gonna see on Wednesday, we're gonna start to mobilize. We're gonna have some storage containers on site. Some other equipment's gonna start coming in, and we expect in just about a month from now, the contractors will be on site and they'll be starting to do some real work. We've put together all the security and safety protocols. All the workers are gonna be badged and fingerprinted, just like our own employees. I think at this point, we've got a pretty good plan put together. We've started to identify swing space to move people around when we need to. We're gonna get that going. We've got the RFP out is for anticipated asbestos abatement that will have to take place, we believe, in the middle school boiler room. There's some material in there that has never really been tested, but since 1990, it's been assumed that it's asbestos containing. It's going to have to go. And with the regulations around asbestos abatement in an occupied building, an occupied school building, we're really tight. We're trying desperately to get this done over April vacation. If we can't get it done in that time frame, then it's gonna push us back substantially until school is out. And other than that, the only other thing I have to say is that we've talked in budget talks recently about, we've had a couple of good years, not much snow, and we've had, it hasn't been much salt,
Yeah.
and we still haven't had much snow. But there has been an enormous amount of salt and ice melt and overtime to keep the site clear over the last couple of weeks. Looks like this week's gonna be the same way.
Yes, unfortunately.
But you've been doing a great job, because look at those roads out here. I mean, they're down pavement, so thank you. You and your team.
It didn't come cheap.
I
Nothing ever done.
And that's it.
Got that salt shed up just in time, huh? Okay, Michelle?
Hello. So open jobs for the month, we have a para open in the middle school. We have a CNA open at the middle school, and we have another para open at the high school. We are doing second interviews for our food service director this week. Very excited on that one. Panorama closed on February 3rd. I was here earlier. So 248 student surveys, 169 family surveys, and 83 staff surveys were completed. I am also working on a complete overhaul of our claims process for travelers, for general liability and workers' comp. And this past Friday, we communicated the evaluation process for the non-certified staff for this year.
You said 83 staff surveys were completed. How many staff do we have? Ballpark.
Well, there's 100 teachers.
Right, so.
Yes. So we had about 180, almost 200. We had less than half do it.
Yeah, okay. that's
And
what
I
was-
do know that the administrators did give time during their faculty meetings for that, so.
Okay.
It's hard. This is the opportunity for them to give the feedback, and unfortunately, I think they were scared because even though we over communicated,
minimized, yeah.
that it was minimized. I think they were just scared that it was still going to be a time consuming process. So this is the chance to give the feedback, and I like climate surveys to a point.
Yeah.
To a point. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Bill, I forgot Bill, because his thing's way in the back. Okay, Bill. Last. One of the most important things.
All right, so from a year-to-date spending perspective, we're at $12.1 million, which unfortunately is a little bit ahead of where we were last year at this time. You're all familiar with a lot of the pressures that are driving that. From an encumbrance perspective, we're sort of in line with where we were last year because we're making a concerted effort to try to close POs where we can. And we froze the budget in October originally, I believe, and that message has been reinforced several times. I think Melinda has mentioned in at past meetings that we have seen a decline in the number of POs that are being opened. However, going back to Bill's comments just a minute ago, approved a few today for salt. So some things you've just got to do. Projected spending at this point, 21.3 million or 99.1% of the budget. Obviously, that's ahead of where we were last year. That estimated projected spending does include because the payment is normally received in February, I incorporated the first expected payment on special ed excess cost. That's about 75% of 340,000 that we expect. So 255 of special ed excess cost is factored into these numbers. From a department perspective, it's the same story we've talked about. The numbers are just a little bit different because obviously the pupil services budget is impacted by the special ed excess cost payment. So right now they're projected at about 720,000 over. The same main drivers there, paraprofessionals, special ed teachers, RBTs, and out-of-district placements. Unfortunately, we're probably going to see some more bad news there, given the enrollment numbers that Melinda mentioned earlier. We are seeing an offset from special ed transportation as we have in past months. That's it in a nutshell. On other items, budget meetings continue, obviously, both at the BOE and at the town. There's one tomorrow night. On the town side, we had the first joint meeting with the Selectmen and Board of Finance last week. We got through 6 or 7 department budgets and a couple of fire departments. Tomorrow's a pretty big night. Outside services are coming in, but the budget march continues.
Okay, thank you, Bill. We have 4 sets of minutes to approve. You approve these all together.
I wasn't at the last 2, so I can either abstain from the whole group, or if we break them up into 2, I'll abstain from the ones wasn't here for.
Doesn't matter.
I'll just abstain from the whole group. That's good.
Make the motion to approve the meeting minutes, January 6th, January 13th, January 21st, and January 27th.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, well, thank you. We have a motion and a second. I'll put the minutes to the floor for discussion. Any comments on any of these minutes? I don't have any in. No? Any comments? Okay, then, hearing no comments, I'll put the motion to the floor for a vote to approve the minutes from the budget meeting, the regular meeting of January 13th, the joint meeting minutes of January 21st, and the other budget meeting of January 27th. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, any abstention?
Abstain.
Heather will abstain, at least from the
The
2
last
that you
2.
didn't attend. Which were what? Which ones did you
The
miss?
last 2 on the list.
The last 2.
Yeah,
21st.
21st and the 27th.
Okay,
And Kathleen, I'm abstaining from the joint meeting.
Okay, that's right. You did not make January 21st. Okay,
Thank you.
All right, and and there are no nays, okay? All right, so the motion passes and abstentions as noted. We didn't have any subcommittees, did we? No, we're doing budget meetings, so. Next month, we will have the subcommittee,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The communication subcommittee. Okay. So that's NA. And now we have. I'll turn the meeting over to Superintendent Smith for the enrollment report.
Good evening, everyone. So we see our enrollment go up this month. At Marriott Fisher, we have 359 students. That's up 4 students from last month. At Thompson Middle School, we have 265 students. That's up 3 students. At the high school, we have 177 students. That's down 2 students. However, this month alone, we are enrolling 4 new high school students. So that number will go up again. Dr. Jones just wanted me to, draw your attention to his report, and his out of district has been remaining steady since November. However, based on some of the new enrollment and some additional services, those numbers are bound to go up for next month. So we just wanted to bring that to your attention. And so we have a total of 802 students in our district.
Question. On the sheet with the backup, and it shows here in the spreadsheet that we're down 4 in grade 10, but only 2 are accounted for in the spreadsheet.
Oh.
Or in the backup data. If we could get an update on.
The other 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the next on the agenda under my report is, if you remember, we brought, and Michelle is here, we brought the diversity plan with the revisions in front of the board, and we discussed it, and we highlighted what was changed in that report, but we never formally voted for you to approve the changes to the plan. And so Justin brought that to our attention, and we put it on the agenda tonight. So that you could approve that. Michelle, do you know in a nutshell what was different?
There's a lot, it's all different wording, but I did bring copies for you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I would
I
get
know.
that out, like it's going out of style.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So when I revised it, they had asked us to just add more to it, just reword some stuff and, create more, unity in the vision statement and the theory and action, as well as add, a little bit more roadmaps, with who owns things, based on, HR directors, administrators, and PDAC, as well as specific goals with the HR director, direct communication to the superintendent, and central office reporting. Again, they liked our concepts. We just needed to add a little bit more to them and clarify what we were communicating.
And you submitted those revisions and
I
they were approved.
And they were approved very quickly,
They meaning who?
the Department of Ed. I was shocked at how quickly they were.
So I guess what we need is to get approval from the board with the new revisions on the diversity plan.
Kathleen, I'll make the motion to approve the diversity plan as we previously discussed and with the new revisions.
No, second.
So I have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussions?
I'll say I was not in favor of this from the beginning. I'm not in favor of this now. I think we should be looking for the best teachers and not because one is green or blue or yellow. It's, yeah, I think it's wrong, so my opinion.
Well. Not to say that we won't hire the best. But
Not what it says.
okay, we have any other discussion?
Like the Jeopardy theme song should just.
I'm waiting for, you ready to?
You have
Looking
any-
at me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
you're
I'm-
reading.
I'm just digesting this, but no, I've nothing new comment right now, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't want to rush
I'm just
you.
looking for the difference.
I just.
It's the
I think
wording.
it just.
Okay, okay.
I think we're
promise you.
open
I don't
to
speak lawyer,
hiring.
so.
I think we're just,
Okay.
I think this. Leaves us open to hiring people of all backgrounds and ethnicities. It doesn't say we're not going to hire by merit.
It doesn't mean we're not gonna hire by merit, but it gives us an opportunity to look in other avenues that we've never looked in before.
Right. Doesn't preclude us from hiring by merit.
Exactly.
And our staff needs to reflect our student body. And so we always try to hire the very best candidates. But we lack or have been lacking in our recruitment efforts to kind of get out of our own little bubble here in northeastern Connecticut. And so we're just casting the net a little wider.
Where are you casting your net that it wasn't going before, I guess?
It's challenged us to look at historically black colleges in more detail. It's charged us to look at outside of our safety net of the Connecticut, Rhode Island areas, follow into New York and New Jersey, to see if we can get those candidates to move this way as well.
And I'm not judging this for what it is, but why do we need a piece of paper to say that we're gonna do it? It's
State requires.
state requirement? Okay, okay, whatever.
Whatever, you know. It'll be rescinded probably soon, so. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. We've had discussion, so now I will put forward the. I don't even know what to. What is it?
Diversity plan.
Diversity plan, okay, the diversity plan. For approval. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay.
No.
No,
No,
no. All right,
I will abstain.
and Matt is abstaining. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a question actually about enrollment, Wanda. You always put like the high school, the other, schools that they go to. What about like elementary? Do you know how many kids are going to like St. Joe's or other?
We don't look
No,
into
no
that.
more St. Joe's.
Yeah, we don't. might be able to
I was just
find that out.
curious.
Oh, you mean St. Joe's?
For non-publics, right?
Yeah, I was just curious to see
Look that up.
what the.
I'm sure Danette wouldn't mind extending her reach and calling.
That online will work for you?
Being like
Yeah.
St. James and that
Yeah,
Danielson
I'm just
and
wondering,
St.
somebody
Joe's.
brought
and
it to my attention
Webster
this weekend that there was tons of kids attending St. Joe's, and I was like, really? So I was just curious personally.
I heard All Saints is a popular one.
Yeah,
too.
like it was just a.
When was the last time they updated? There's a site you go to that they have how many school age kids?
Oh,
online.
yeah, the demographic. Yeah,
When was the last time they updated that?
I don't know,
Yeah.
but
'Cause
I.
I wonder how many school age kids there are at Thompson. It's not a lot.
I'm sure the schools will give us that information, you know, just how many students from each community.
Yeah. Okay, do we have any old business that we need to discuss this today? Yes. Leave it to-
Just the monthly reports, like with the lunch balances and the,
You were
Oh, I was
supposed to
gonna bring
send
that
that,
up under new business.
didn't you send that? to,
technically it's old because it's supposed to be part of.
Yeah.
I sent it to you.
Oh, I wanted you to send it to the board. Okay.
We kind of
got
discussed
it.
that though, if we could do that on a quarterly basis.
We're taking it every month. And
Yeah,
that process
but-
is in place. They finished it late on last week. Remember, we were waiting for them. So we do have them.
Why don't we include it as part of the package?
Because there's information on there that's sensitive.
Oh, okay.
They're right here. Came Friday. Oh, you know why? Because I was missing one. And I got it. Yeah.
Send all three right now.
Danielle has them.
Okay. Any other old business? New business? Oh. We have some correspondence. It was a thank you card, very nice one from Ann Miller. You all have that in your package, okay?
I don't know if this is, I think it's considered correspondence. I did get an email from Cindy Houlet. We were talking about something else and then she asked me my thought on something. I said, well, let me bring it up to the Board of Ed at our next meeting. So I'm bringing it up to the Board of Ed. She obviously is deep in the capstone process and making sure that the pillars that we have set are followed through that process and all of that. And she had just a suggestion that we might want to consider under the community connected pillar of the POG. Currently, we have listed appreciative of local history. And in going through our roundtable discussions that we have every year with local government and our involvement in that, she thought it might be worth a discussion whether we want to update that to say appreciative of local history and government. And to kind of maybe expand it a little bit. So food for thought, because she thought there was some value in that. So I'm putting it out just to let the group think about that. And when there's an opportunity to maybe review that, maybe we can keep that in mind.
That would be a whole revision process of the POG.
Well, I think it's, the pillar still stays as is. It's just the bullets that
Yeah.
that the students use as their guide as to what that means. And what they're striving for, could maybe be modified.
We can ask Cindy to come back next month and explain why she wants to add that attribute.
Yes, thank you.
That's fine. Kind of ties into all the work you do in the leadership.
Right, I think that's what her point was, is to.
Okay, any other, okay, so then no more correspondence, then we'll do the second round of citizens' comments. Yes.
That's so.
Anyway. Nicola Krasinowski, Mountain Hill Road, North Rosendale. I would just ask if that Zoom link is available for the rest of us too, that Flexer was talking about, that we also are able to have a copy of that Zoom link.
Yes.
I appreciate the comments that were made tonight, but I'm not on the Board of Ed, so I get to talk about the elephant in the room, which is that all students aren't being treated equal, right? Our general ed kids are being held hostage in October to a budget. There is no spend that this school is able to give them, and the PTO spends more time trying to fundraise for general ed activities than spending time with their own kids. And I am grateful for the PTO members who do that, but it's not fair to their kids and it's not fair to the rest of them. So as much as we say that it's all kids are created equal, and I totally agree with that, but we're not talking about what's happening to our general ed kids. We're just not. And I appreciate where you guys are in that seat, but I'm not in that seat for a reason, because it isn't fair. And it needs to be talked about. And she's been around a really long time and nothing's getting done. She even made a comment that it's gonna take 1 year to 2 years, Matt, for what you asked for. We don't have 1 year to 2 years in our budgets to keep up with these kind of changes. The town just doesn't have it, right? So mandates either need to change or we need to stop doing them and have, unfortunately, some kids suffer. But the question that I worry about is which kids are gonna be the ones that suffer. Is it the ones that have a state mandate around them? Or is it the kids like my daughter who just got a great award, who now will lose everything that makes her day a fun day? And that's not fair to them. It really isn't. So I would just appreciate that we all get the chance to speak out. I appreciate what the board does. There's, like I said, there's a reason I don't sit in those seats, because I wouldn't. Daniel, I appreciate what you said today, and, you know, I'll go back to when I was a kid. There were generalized schools for children who weren't in general society. And it was, the money was allocated to that school, and if you didn't send your child to that school, you foot the bill for them to be in general ed. And maybe, unfortunately, for a while, we need to go back to that until the mandates catch up, or the funding for the mandates catch up. But something has to be done, because what's happening now is just unacceptable.
I agree. And why should the kids on the Gold Coast of Connecticut and Southern Connecticut have all these benefits that our kids can't afford?
I agree. I think I would love more than anything to see what you could do without having to worry every single day what special ed kid was gonna show up tomorrow, what I need to hold in my budget. You guys have done an amazing job over 7 years bringing stuff in with your hands tied. I can't imagine what our district could look like if it wasn't, right? If that fundraising that we do was done, I don't know, to send our kids to the Celtics game instead, right? We raffle off the 2 tickets and we try to fund it, but imagine being able to send all the National Honor Society kids somewhere, right? Doing these things without having to really bust our butts to get additional funding out of the people who can. And then I see it from a different perspective of the parents who come up and say, how else can I do when I don't have the money and I don't have the transportation to be the person helping? And their hands are just as tied, right? So it does fall on a small percentage. It falls on a lot of us in the room, and it falls on the parents who actually show up. And the ones that don't, a lot of times isn't because they don't want to, it's because they don't want you to realize what category they fit in. And that's on our state reps to fix. So I appreciate what you guys have done. I thank you for what you've done. I ask that you figure out a political, I'm not good at the political side of things, of how to communicate on our behalf for the kids who are handcuffed by the October budget stops and all of the stuff in the general ed that's not happening.
Thank you.
Kathleen.
So to follow up on what Nicole just said, I ran 4 or 5 times, just basically on the platform of we need to help our general ed students and coming, you know, when I was back many moons ago, when I was in school, I was part of the academically talented program. It just doesn't feel like we can do things for that part of the population, but also just the general
population and our hands are tied and it's frustrating on a daily basis and it's just, it's painful. We do a lot with what we have.
Can I make a comment? So we're trying, right?
Oh, I know we are.
And, you know, the music program at the elementary, the strings and the band, that's new this year.
Yes.
We're squeaking by with that. Well,
We shouldn't
you are
squeak
right.
by on every little thing.
It would be nice that we could expand that beyond that. But I think that the dollars that we do get, the board is very focused on making sure that we stretch it. Are we taking away from just general programs to fund additional programs for students who need additional support? We are, but on the flip side of things, we are offering CNA certifications. We have AP classes that we're running, virtual high school opportunities for our kids. So all of those dollars that we have been getting, we've been fairly creative with. Believe me, I've worked in a wealthier district, and so I understand what can be done when you have that funding. But on the other hand, I will say, I think we all have really, and everybody around this table has been fundraising and doing things in the community, but I think we've done a really nice job making sure that we're hanging on to, and believe it or not, we've added some things
Oh, and I'm
along the
not,
way.
I wasn't trying to diminish what we have done, but it could be,
So much
Yeah.
it could be,
bigger.
if that $21 million locally went down to $19 million, but then 2 million of that dollars went into our general population, we would be phenomenal. We wouldn't be just hanging on by our fingernails. We could be truly doing something amazing, as opposed to doing amazing things on a shoestring.
Right.
So, I was not trying to
I get
take
that,
away from the things
but
that
I
we
didn't
do
want
do.
us to lose sight of
No,
the
no.
fact that we are still
Right.
able to bring in some new programming.
But if we could, I forgot the exact numbers. If it was 4 million that we spend on special ed.
5.4.
Okay, fine, thank you.
5.4 million.
Right, so if we
Right,
could then,
a lot.
if we could take that out of our town budget. Reduce the taxpayer burden.
Yeah.
But then maybe put 1 million back into the general school, that would be amazing. So, and it's not us, it's them. And it's not gonna happen overnight. It's not,
Right,
but it's.
But even like from what May was saying, just like we have been creative on kind of making programs happen on a shoestring budget, either through grants or alliances or corporate, relationships. It seemed as though, and maybe that's our angle, that they could possibly be creative on how they disseminate funds. If it's not under that one heading, there's other ways that we could maybe get it, So it sounds like she was hinting to that in her conversation, is that there's different ways to get it,
That's kind of brought up that incentive thing, because I hear other districts who've newly put in programs like Killen. Want an incentive for that. Well, what about us? We've been doing this for years.
Right.
Kristen.
I just wanted to say, I have children who are on both sides. I have a child who's quite gifted and actually scores hundreds of points higher on their state testing than most in the district. And I have students who are in special ed. I just think I'm 100%, we need the funding from the state. I just think we need to be really careful about the way we're saying it. It's not some campaign against special ed kids. Like,
Yeah.
No.
I just think that we need
It's
to
the
like
tone and
realize
the
that, be
context of
sensitive.
being
Be
addressed.
sensitive. Like, it's true that we don't want to take away from gen ed. Like, I'm 100% for that. I wish that there was more things I could do for my kid who's gifted as well as my kids who are not. I just think that it needs to be a little sensitive the way that you talk about special
No,
education.
well, we do, but if the state were to fund the special
right, I'm
ed,
saying
we
I
would be
agree.
able to have a gifted program. Many schools have a gifted
I know.
program, which we cannot afford. And there are gifted kids in this school.
Right, and I don't think they should be back.
We used
either.
to
I'm not
have
saying that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah, and we do have the AP and the college
It's,
courses.
We do, and there's honors and AP in the high school.
Right.
It's when you're in more the fourth,
Right,
fifth, sixth,
right.
seventh, and eighth, that
Right.
there used to be a fostering of that kind of thing.
I got a
early.
lot out of that stuff when I was in school.
Right.
Right,
A
and we
lot.
did too. I went through the Woodstock school systems and they had that, well, that was many moons
But I
ago,
don't
but-
think anybody at this table was
No,
looking to
no.
take anything away from our special
No,
ed population.
no,
It's
That's not what we were
That's
getting
not
at.
what I meant,
It's
yeah.
the
Yeah,
funding.
It's the
for
funding, it's the
special ed.
unfunding,
Special.
underfunding.
Well, right, I guess I don't want it to also go out to the public as this like.
Yeah.
Special ed.
Because
kids are-
when I,
No, no, no.
when I went to school, they were not mainstreaming special education. There was Mansfield, there was the Dempsey Center in Putnam. They didn't go to school unless, unless he had special reading teachers and things, but other than that.
I'm not looking to return.
No.
Yes.
So,
Right.
yeah, to kind of piggyback off of what Kristen was just saying, like, I totally understand the being sympathetic in the situation. Like, I was blessed to have both, where I had a child that had special ed services in elementary school, and she did great. And then I had a daughter who just cruised through the school system, like, and, nobody's business, and did great. And then my son, he was average. But, I think that, but I think that, I do feel, and I don't want you to think like when I get all fiery with May and just explaining, I just don't, I feel like there's no responsibility from our government as to how, you're gonna trickle down a mandate and then not give us the proper funding or help to fund it, and like, kind of like, what Nikki was saying was like, that I struggle with that no child left behind thing, because I'm like,
Right.
in most
It means
districts,
both
the
ways.
majority of the children kind of, in some ways, could be considered left behind, so it's like, how do we fund properly where everybody's getting their needs met? I think that the state needs to also take into consideration that when they close down some programs that they used to have that would be beneficial to some students, that, like, they need to get creative themselves in their own programming that they could create to help towns and districts as well. So, I just think it's a big conversation that just hasn't happened in a long time. And, now we can't avoid it. And I'm happy that they're seeing it. And also, I've been saying to Nicola that we need to have all the boards reaching out to our reps. And I was really upset that our rep didn't show up, because, I hope that he'll be able to come again.
I don't think he was invited.
I hope that maybe we can, reach out and, have him come at
I
some
don't
point.
think he was, because Jeff reached out to us.
Yes.
And then we in turn reached out to May.
Correct.
I don't think we invited.
Okay, so,
It wasn't
we'll
his
have to have a
fault.
conversation with maybe when
I will
Senator
invite
Gordon
him for the
comes.
next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be
If
great.
he represents us, he should meet us.
Yeah, I think so. And I think all the boards need to get together on this, and we need to have a bigger voice in the fire corner.
So.
If I could make one quick final comment, just.
Yeah.
It is, and actually, this was Jess's idea, so I'm gonna give her credit.
I don't know what it is.
No, it's good. Is that, what happens when when the Board of Finance approves the budget and then it goes to the town, it is imperative that the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance support that budget publicly. That means show your support either at the polls, show your support amongst your friends, show your support in more ways than I think that we have seen, so that we can pass the budget. Because when the budget is supported by the Board of Finance and put through to the town, and then it fails, that's when the general ed is really gonna feel it.
You said that's so much nicer than
But-
I did.
but if
Thank
it
you for taking the
passes,
point on that.
We maintain what we have at a minimum. And then we gotta be creative from there, So it would be great to have a little bit more. I know there's certain ones that
I
are always
can't
out there with
by
me,
myself.
but it would be helpful to have more support.
Okay.
Tom has his hand up.
I see that, or I was told that.
So I just
Yes,
want to say, in my 17 years of being on the Board of Ed, every year we hear the same story. And it's the mandates that come through that are unfunded. For 17 years, we've been told the same exact story from our legislative, elected officials, that, yeah, help will come, but the mandates continue to rise and the funding continues to go down. They continue, and this is probably the worst year that I've ever heard, that the surplus is continuing to expand at a higher rate than it ever has been, at the burden of us as the taxpayer, without the money trickling back to the towns that need it. So I plead everybody to send a letter to your senators, to your House of Reps, whoever it is. Stop touting that we have this surplus while we in these towns are struggling just to survive and educate our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,